The morning sun painted golden streaks across the sprawling compound of Dr. Amara Okafor's estate in Lagos. As one of Nigeria's most successful pharmaceutical entrepreneurs, she had built an empire that stretched across West Africa. Her mansion stood like a fortress of success, with marble floors that gleamed under crystal chandeliers and gardens that bloomed with hibiscus and bougainvillea. Mama Kemi, the head housekeeper who had served the family for over 2 decades, moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency. She adjusted the imported curtains and supervised the gardener who tended to the exotic orchids that Dr. Son Okafor prized so highly. The house operated like clockwork under her watchful eye, every surface polished to perfection. That Tuesday morning, a weathered taxi pulled up to the imposing iron gates. From it emerged a young woman of 25, clutching a faded cloth bag that contained all her worldly possessions. Her name was Folake, and she had travelled from the remote village of Ilesha in Osun State, where red earth roads wound between cassava farms and children still played with toys carved from wood. Life in the village had been simple but harsh. After the woman who raised her, Mama Biodun, had passed away 6 months earlier, Folake found herself alone and desperate. The village pastor, Father Adebayo, had pressed a letter of recommendation into her hands. "She is honest, hard-working and God-fearing," the letter proclaimed. "Give her a chance to prove herself." When Folake stepped into the air-conditioned foyer, she was struck by the profound silence that seemed to echo through the vast spaces. Everything spoke of wealth and status, from the imported leather furniture to the abstract paintings that adorned the walls. Dr. Amara Okafor barely glanced up from her morning newspaper when Mama Kemi introduced the newcomer. "Can you cook traditional dishes?" Dr. Okafor asked curtly, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "Yes, ma'am. Jollof rice, egusi soup, pounded yam. Good. You'll sleep in the quarters behind the kitchen. Work begins at dawn, ends when I dismiss you. No unnecessary chatter with the other staff. No personal calls during working hours. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am." Dr. Okafor returned to her newspaper, already dismissing the young woman from her thoughts. For her, domestic staff were invisible fixtures, necessary but unremarkable. Folake was led to a small room with concrete walls, a narrow bed, and a single window that looked out onto the service yard. She carefully unpacked her few belongings, including a small wooden jewellery box that contained her most precious possession, a coral bead necklace with intricate gold threading. It was the only connection to her mysterious past, the only thing Mama Biodun had saved from the day a stranger brought baby Folake to her doorstep. "This was wrapped around you when you came to me," Mama Biodun had explained years later. "I saved it, thinking one day it might lead you back to where you belong." As night fell over Lagos, Folake lay on the unfamiliar bed, listening to the distant hum of the city. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had been brought here for a reason beyond mere employment. The house seemed to hold secrets in its shadows, and something deep within her whispered that her arrival was no accident. In her private study 3 floors above, Dr. Amara Okafor worked late into the night, reviewing pharmaceutical contracts and expansion plans. She had built her empire through sheer determination, having started with nothing more than a chemistry degree and an unwavering ambition. Yet, despite all her success, there remained an emptiness in her life that no amount of wealth could fill, a void that had haunted her for 25 years. What secrets lie buried in Dr. Okafor's past? Will Folake discover the truth about her origins? Subscribe and hit the bell icon to find out what happens when these 2 women's destinies collide in the most unexpected way. The weeks passed in a rhythm of quiet efficiency. Folake adapted quickly to the household's demanding schedule, rising before dawn to prepare Dr. Okafor's preferred breakfast of fresh fruit, honey, and herbal tea. She learned to move through the house like a whisper, attending to her duties with an almost invisible presence that the other staff admired. Dr. Okafor's pharmaceutical company, Golden Leaf Industries, was expanding into Ghana and Senegal, requiring her constant attention. She hosted high-powered meetings in her home office, where she negotiated deals worth millions of naira. Folake would serve refreshments during these meetings, noting how her employer commanded respect from men twice her age. There was something about Folake that Dr. Okafor couldn't quite dismiss. Perhaps it was the way she arranged flowers with an artistic eye, or how she hummed traditional Yoruba lullabies while cleaning, melodies that stirred memories Dr. Okafor thought she had buried forever. Sometimes, catching glimpses of the young woman in her peripheral vision, she felt an inexplicable flutter of recognition. Folake, meanwhile, found herself drawn to the family photographs that lined the hallways. Most showed Dr. Okafor at various business functions, receiving awards, or cutting ribbons at new facilities. But there was one image that haunted her, a much younger Dr. Okafor from perhaps 25 years ago, standing alone at what appeared to be a university graduation. Something in those eyes spoke of loss and longing. One afternoon, while organising Dr. Okafor's personal library, Folake discovered a collection of old journals tucked behind medical textbooks. Her hands trembled as she opened one dated 26 years ago. The entries spoke of a brilliant young woman struggling to balance her studies with an unexpected pregnancy, of impossible choices and heart-wrenching decisions. "Some mistakes echo through generations," one entry read. "I pray she will forgive me someday, even if I can never forgive myself." Folake quickly closed the journal, her heart racing. She couldn't be certain, but the timing aligned perfectly with her own age. That night, she held her coral necklace up to the light, studying its intricate patterns and wondering if it held the key to questions she had never dared to ask. Dr. Okafor began experiencing strange dreams, visions of a baby's cry echoing through empty corridors, of tiny hands reaching toward her before vanishing into darkness. She would wake in the middle of the night, inexplicably drawn to walk through her house as if searching for something she couldn't name. The other household staff noticed the subtle changes in both women. Mama Kemi, who had been present during Dr. Ichi Okafor's darkest period 25 years ago, watched with knowing eyes as the past began to stir in the present. She increased her prayers, sensing that long-buried truths were fighting to surface. During a particularly busy week, when Dr. Okafor was hosting a conference for African pharmaceutical leaders, Folake worked tirelessly to ensure everything ran smoothly. She prepared traditional Nigerian delicacies, arranged fresh flowers throughout the house, and served guests with quiet dignity. Several attendees commented on the exceptional service, praising Dr. Okafor for her excellent household management. That evening, as the last guest departed, Dr. Okafor found Folake cleaning up the conference room. For the first time, she really looked at the young woman, noting the elegant line of her neck, the thoughtful expression in her dark eyes, the graceful way she moved through space. "You did well today," Dr. Okafor said quietly. "Thank you, Mum. I'm glad the conference was successful." They stood in silence for a moment, an unspoken recognition passing between them. Dr. Okafor felt an overwhelming urge to ask questions she had no right to voice, while Folake sensed layers of story beneath her employer's composed exterior. That night, Folake wrote in the small notebook she kept hidden under her mattress, "I feel like I'm walking through a house that holds pieces of my own story. Every day, the feeling grows stronger that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be, even if I don't understand why. The connection deepens, but neither woman is ready to face the truth. What will it take for the past to finally reveal itself? Don't miss the next chapter, like this video, and subscribe to see how destiny unfolds." The revelation began with a piece of fabric. While shopping at the famous Balogun market in Lagos Island, Folake paused at a stall selling traditional textiles. Among the colourful display, one particular cloth caught her eye, a deep blue Adia fabric with white patterns that seemed to pulse with familiar energy. "This pattern," she whispered to the elderly vendor. "I've seen it before." "Ah, my daughter," the old woman smiled. "This is a birth cloth, very old design from Osun State. We used to wrap newborns in this pattern to bless them with protection and identity. You have good eyes. Most young people don't recognize the old ways." Folake purchased a small piece, her hands trembling as she folded it carefully. The fabric felt like a piece of a puzzle she didn't know she was solving. Back at the estate, Dr. Okafor was dealing with her own awakening memories. A business associate had mentioned visiting a rural clinic in Osun State, and the conversation triggered a flood of recollections she had spent decades suppressing. She found herself climbing to the dusty storage room she rarely visited, searching through boxes of items she had kept but never examined. In a corner, wrapped in layers of plastic, she found what she was looking for, a small wooden chest she had hidden away 25 years ago. Inside were remnants of the most painful chapter of her life: a tiny hospital bracelet, a university identification card from her student days, and a photograph of herself at barely 20, visibly pregnant and achingly young. But it was the fabric at the bottom of the chest that stopped her breathing, a piece of the same blue Adar cloth that tradition demanded be wrapped around newborn babies. She had torn it from the larger cloth the night she made the most difficult decision of her life. Meanwhile, Folake was experiencing increasingly vivid dreams. She saw herself as a baby being carried through darkness, felt the warmth of arms that held her briefly before letting go, heard whispered words of love mixed with tears of regret. The dreams were so real that she would wake up feeling like she had been transported through time. Mama Kemi watched both women with growing concern. She had been Dr. Okafor's only confidant during that dark period 25 years ago, the only person who knew about the pregnancy that threatened to derail a brilliant young woman's future. She had helped arrange the adoption through a network of village women who asked no questions and kept sacred secrets. The household's routine continued, but tension crackled beneath the surface. Dr. Okafor found excuses to observe Folake more closely, studying her features for resemblances she was afraid to acknowledge. She noticed how Folake's hands moved with the same elegant gestures as her own grandmother, how she tilted her head thoughtfully exactly as Dr. Okafor did when concentrating. One evening, Dr. Okafor's mother, the formidable Chief Mrs. Okafor, arrived for her monthly visit. The elderly woman was known throughout Lagos society for her sharp intelligence and uncanny ability to read people. Within minutes of meeting Folake, she pulled her daughter aside. "That girl," she whispered urgently, "she has our family's eyes. Look at her carefully, Amara. Look at how she holds herself. How she speaks. I've seen that face before in our family photographs." "Mama, you're imagining things," Dr. Okafor protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Am I? Then explain why your house feels different since she arrived. Explain why you look at her like you're seeing a ghost. Some chickens come home to roost, my daughter, whether we're ready or not." That night, unable to sleep, Dr. Okafor found herself drawn to Folake's quarters. Through the window, she could see the young woman sitting on her bed, holding something that caught the light. It was then that she saw it clearly, the coral necklace with intricate gold threading that she recognized instantly. It was the necklace her own grandmother had given her, the one she had placed around her newborn daughter's neck as a blessing and a promise that love would guide her back home someday. The necklace she had assumed was lost forever was now around the neck of the young woman she had hired as her maid. Dr. Okafor's legs gave way, and she sank to the ground outside the window, finally understanding that the universe had orchestrated a reunion 25 years in the making. Her daughter, the baby she had given away to ensure her survival, had found her way back home. The truth is finally within reach, but will mother and daughter have the courage to face it? The most emotional revelation awaits in the next chapter. Subscribe now to witness this incredible moment of recognition. The confrontation came on a humid Thursday morning when the house was unusually quiet. Dr. Okafor had dismissed the other staff early, claiming she needed to work on confidential documents. In reality, she had spent the night rehearsing words that could never adequately express 25 years of regret and love. She found Folake in the garden, tending to the hibiscus flowers that had always been Dr. Okafor's favourite. The young woman worked with gentle precision, humming a melody that Dr. Okafor recognised as a song her own grandmother used to sing. "Folake," she called softly, "please come inside, we need to talk." Something in her employer's tone made Folake look up sharply. Dr. Okafor's usual composure had cracked, revealing vulnerability that Folake had never seen before. She followed her into the private sitting room, where sunlight streamed through tall windows onto a collection of family photographs. Dr. Inyai Okafor had arranged several items on the coffee table: the wooden chest, the faded photograph of her younger self, and the piece of blue Adire fabric. Her hands shook as she gestured for Folake to sit across from her. 25 years ago, Dr. Okafor began, her voice barely above a whisper. I was a university student with dreams of building a pharmaceutical empire. I was brilliant, ambitious, and completely unprepared for motherhood. When I discovered I was pregnant, I felt like my entire future was crumbling. Folake's heart began to race, but she remained silent, sensing that words spoken now could not be taken back. The father was a fellow student who disappeared the moment he learned about the pregnancy. I had no family support. My parents had died in a car accident 2 years earlier, and I was surviving on scholarships and part-time jobs. I knew that having a baby would mean giving up everything I had worked for. Dr. Okafor reached for the photograph, her fingers tracing the image of her younger, pregnant self. I carried you for 9 months, talking to you every night, promising that somehow I would find a way to keep you. But when you were born, perfect and beautiful, I realized that love sometimes means making impossible choices. Folake's breath caught in her throat. The coral necklace around her neck suddenly felt heavy with significance. I held you for 1 whole night, Dr. Okafor continued, tears flowing freely now. You were so tiny, so trusting. I placed my grandmother's necklace around your neck, the only valuable thing I owned, and whispered promises I wasn't sure I could keep. The next morning, I gave you to Mama Biodun, a woman known throughout Osun State for her kindness to children who needed homes. I made her promise never to tell you about me unless you asked directly. I thought it would be easier for you to grow up believing you were truly wanted, rather than knowing you were given away. I thought I was protecting you from the pain of rejection. Folake's hand moved unconsciously to her necklace. The coral beads, she whispered. My grandmother told me they were blessed by 7 generations of women in our family. She said they would always guide their wearer back to where they belonged. I never believed in such things until now. Dr. Okafor stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where Folake had been working. I built my company with a fury that frightened my competitors. Every success, every breakthrough, every achievement was driven by the guilt of abandoning you. I told myself that if I became successful enough, somehow I could justify the choice I made. But success without love is just a beautiful cage. I've spent 25 years as a prisoner of my own making, wondering every day whether you were safe, whether you were happy, whether you would ever forgive me if you knew the truth. Folake stood slowly, her legs unsteady. Mama Biodun used to tell me that my mother was young and brave, that she loved me enough to want something better for me than she could provide. She said the necklace was proof that I was cherished, even if I was given away. Dr. Okafor turned, her eyes red with tears. I've watched you these past months, seeing pieces of myself, pieces of my grandmother, pieces of our family history written in your gestures and expressions. I knew in my heart, but I was terrified of what acknowledging the truth might mean. It means, Folake said quietly, stepping closer, that both our prayers have been answered. You prayed for my forgiveness, and I prayed for understanding. We've both been given what we asked for. For a long moment, they stood facing each other, mother and daughter, separated by years of pain, but united by an unbreakable bond. Then, slowly, Dr. Okafor opened her arms, and Folake stepped into the embrace she had unconsciously sought her entire life. "I'm sorry," Dr. Okafor whispered against her daughter's hair. "I'm so deeply sorry." "I know, Mama," Folake replied, the word feeling natural and right on her lips. "I know." After 25 years, mother and daughter are finally reunited. But can they truly heal from decades of separation? The emotional conclusion awaits. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see how this incredible story ends. 6 months after the revelation, the Okafor household had transformed into something unrecognizable from its former self. Where once silence had reigned, now there was the gentle murmur of mother and daughter conversations, shared laughter over morning tea, and the sound of traditional Yoruba music playing softly in the background. Folake no longer lived in the servants' quarters. Dr. Okafor had converted the guest wing into a beautiful apartment for her daughter, complete with a study where Folake could pursue the business education that her mother insisted upon. "You're an Okafor woman," Dr. Okafor had declared. "We don't just survive, we thrive." The transition hadn't been without challenges. Some of the household staff struggled to adjust to Folake's new status, whispering about sudden elevation and unearned privilege. But Mama Kemi, who had known the truth all along, became Folake's fierce protector and guide in navigating her new world. "Child," Mama Kemi explained during one of their evening talks, "your mother carried the weight of losing you for 25 years. She built that business empire not just for success, but as a monument to the daughter she thought she'd never see again. Every achievement was an offering to the universe, hoping it would bring you back to her." Dr. Okafor had insisted on formal recognition of their relationship, hiring genealogy experts and legal advisors to document Folake's rightful place in the family. The coral necklace, authenticated by traditional craftsmen, became the centerpiece of evidence that convinced even the most skeptical relatives. The news of Dr. Okafor's found daughter rippled through Lagos society like a carefully dropped stone. Some celebrated the miraculous reunion, while others whispered about secrets and scandals. But Dr. Okafor faced the gossip with newfound strength, her daughter's presence filling the void that had driven her relentless ambition. Folake enrolled in business courses at the University of Lagos, showing the same sharp intelligence that had made her mother a pharmaceutical pioneer. She studied international trade, marketing, and pharmaceutical distribution, preparing to eventually join Golden Leaf Industries as more than just an heir, as a true partner in building the family legacy. The relationship with her mother deepened through shared discoveries. They found they both loved classical music, preferred spicy food that made them sweat, and had an uncanny ability to read people's intentions within minutes of meeting them. Dr. Okafor taught her daughter about the pharmaceutical industry, while Folake shared stories of village life that reminded her mother of simpler values she had almost forgotten. One evening, as they sat in the garden watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Folake asked the question that had been weighing on her heart. "Mama, do you ever regret the choice you made? Do you think our lives would have been better if you had kept me from the beginning?" Dr. Okafor considered the question carefully, as she now considered all conversations with her daughter with the weight they deserved. "I think," she said slowly, "that some paths through life require us to lose ourselves completely before we can find who we're truly meant to be." If I had kept you 25 years ago, I would have been a bitter, struggling single mother, probably resentful of the dreams I had to abandon. You would have grown up feeling responsible for my unhappiness. Instead, you were raised by Mama Biodun, who loved you purely and taught you kindness. I built something meaningful with my pain. When we found each other again, we were both complete people capable of choosing love freely, not out of obligation or desperation. So no, she concluded, reaching for her daughter's hand. I don't regret the path that led us here. I regret the pain. I regret the lost years. But I don't regret the journey that made us who we are today. As the months passed, their bond strengthened and evolved. Folak began accompanying her mother to business meetings, offering fresh perspectives that impressed even the most traditional board members. Dr. Okafor started incorporating village wisdom into her leadership style, remembering lessons about community and connection that her daughter brought back into her life. They established a foundation together, the Biodun Memorial Trust, dedicated to supporting single mothers and providing scholarships for girls from rural areas. It was their way of honouring the woman who had raised Folake and ensuring that other young mothers wouldn't face impossible choices alone. On the first anniversary of their reunion, they travelled together to visit Mama Biodun's grave in Ilesha. They brought flowers, traditional offerings, and stories of how her love had created a bridge between past and future. Standing beside the simple headstone, mother and daughter held hands and whispered prayers of gratitude for the woman whose kindness had preserved their connection across decades of separation. She knew, Folak said quietly. Somehow she always knew that the necklace would bring me home eventually. Dr. Okafor nodded, her eyes bright with tears that no longer carried only sorrow. The best mothers are the ones who love their children enough to trust in love itself. Mama Biodun understood that truth belongs to no one person. It belongs to the universe, and it will always find its way to the light. As they drove back to Lagos that evening, the city lights welcoming them home, both women felt the profound peace that comes from knowing that love, no matter how interrupted, never truly ends. Their story had begun with separation, continued through decades of unknowing, and culminated in a reunion that proved some bonds are too strong for time or distance to break. The Okafor women had found each other, and in doing so, they had found themselves. And that's how a mother and daughter, separated by impossible circumstances, found their way back to each other through love, faith, and the mysterious workings of destiny. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who believes in the power of family bonds. What did you think of this incredible journey? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest stories. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next amazing tale.